All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the March 30th, 2021 iteration of the Kubernetes SIG Windows community meeting. As always, these meetings are recorded and uploaded to YouTube, so please be sure to adhere to the CNCF Code of Conduct. And let me share my screen, and then we can kind of get started. All right. I see a couple people are still adding some things to the notes, but we can get started here. Let me pull up the chat too, so I don't miss anything. All right. First, we can see if there's any new folks on the call who would like to kind of just give an introduction, or anybody who wants to just kind of say hello. And I see a couple of people who look new on the call here. But if not, we can get started. First thing is announcements. I don't see any new announcements. I know we're kind of rapidly approaching the end of the 121 release. I believe tomorrow is the deadline for having reviewed and open doc PRs set up. Those don't necessarily need to merge tomorrow because the docs review team likes to take a look at them, but they do ask that all of the doc PRs are reviewed by the subject matter experts. So if anybody has any open doc PRs, I know last I checked on Friday, there was a couple for SIG Windows. It'd be good to kind of focus on those for today and tomorrow. I'll start pinging folks kind of after this meeting too, to make sure we get all of those changes merged. Yeah, so Jay mentioned Mike K and Maurizio might be new. Believe so. But Jay, are there any other announcements that we have? I can't think of any.
I don't really have any. I'm just kind of clearing my cache from some other stuff. So, but as always, we're going to be pairing after this today, and I think we might maybe go into the kubelet and some other sort of interesting stuff. So, as always, everybody feel free to stay on afterwards and do the SIG Windows after dark.
Yep. Sounds good. Let's get into some of these issues. I believe Jing added the first issue about this container teardown issue. I think that a couple of other folks have been looking at it. Unless this is a different issue. Jing, are you on? Oh, I actually don't see Jing on the call. Let's skip that and see if she joins later. Jay, did you start adding some of the image builder work?
Yeah, I mean, it's all really minor and it's not super Windows critical stuff, but it's just a couple of things that I ran into this morning that I figured, since the agenda was kind of thin, would be interesting to talk about.
Sure. Let me dig into this. All right, do you want to?
Yeah, I can start with this. Now, again, this is low priority, so I'm happy to, if anybody's got something more important to talk about. I'm forgot there's another announcement. I've talked some to James about this, but we are going to try to really redo the entire kube proxy with this new tool called Kaping. And we have essentially a kube proxy working group that meets up every Friday, just FYI. And I think it's going to be really good for the Windows side of things, because it's going to be a lot more easy to understand, and it's going to completely decouple the code bases for the different kube proxy implementations. So I'd like to take a pulse after we talk about this, about whether anybody cares about us being on the bleeding edge of that initiative. Anyway, so this is something I've been playing around with. I've been talking to Perry about, but building images is real important for Windows since you can't distribute it. And so I feel like it's kind of a SIG Windows related thing. It's too bad James isn't here because he might have some strong opinions on this, but we were just kind of talking about like what would be the best way to really serve up kube proxy and kubelet and all the other artifacts. Downstream, we have this concept of like this, we call it the burrito, right? This idea that you have like all this stuff and you need to put it into an image. And, we're kind of solutioneering stuff downstream, and we're kind of internally bike shedding a lot about like what's the right way to do it, because there's 1,000 ways to do this. And we haven't really come up with a standard way of doing it yet. So I've kind of tried to upstream this question and see whether anybody might be interested in image builder, possibly being aware of things. None of this is super critical, but yeah.
I think that the key point that you're trying to solve is building in an air-gapped environment. If you don't have an internet connection, if you don't have access to the web, how do you build a Windows image if you are a person that has got to build a Windows image because you're not allowed to be supplied that by another vendor or whatever? And it's trying to understand on whether we need to find a mechanism to be able to preload that, or whether we need to build and copy in, or whether we need to put something into image builder that allows us to load the artifacts kind of by the nature of just basically rerouting the URL or that Ansible uses to then pick it up from localhost or whatever. But yeah, it's trying to find a way around the lack of web is quite tricky.
Yeah, so that's really the question, right?
Yeah, I know for AKS we do kind of air gap scenarios too, and while we're not using cluster API, we do have kind of a golden image concept, and where we do ensure that for different releases, all of the artifacts that would be needed, at least for the standard cluster bring ups, are kind of included in that image. I see a couple people on the call who are pretty active in SIG cluster lifecycle or cluster API too, like David and Lubomir and others. I think that this is probably going to overlap quite a bit with kind of those projects as well. So I don't know if anybody wants to comment, or if we should just kind of think about this and wait for James to come back. Everything. But yeah, I do see this kind of being an important issue in the future.
I think it's because of the redistribution rights. No one else can ever supply you a Windows image with everything loaded. So it's just trying to work our way around that a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so that's the thing. We've been using the tool internally called image package, which kind of tries to put a little bit of a facade around the idea that you have, maybe 20 or 30 different Docker images or files or something, and then it gives you a way to kind of package those in a container with a unique sort of aggregate signature and stuff. So it solves some of the easy problems, but it doesn't, it doesn't give an end-to-end solution to us for the problem of a actual, like, some kind of way to just spin a host up that serves the artifacts. And so you get into this weird intermediate state where you're like, well, I could give people a shell script or a Python script that did this in like 4 lines of code. And then you have this weird bike shedding problem that happens afterwards because everybody has their favorite web server. And so it winds up, it's not a tech problem. It's just should we standardize around a way of doing this thing? I don't think, if nobody has any opinions, I'm happy to just talk.
Yeah, I want to take a look at this and see if I can kind of come up with some thoughts before I comment too much on here, because I think that there is a lot of different ways that this could go.
Yeah. The big thing from the community perspective is whether anybody else has run into this issue of, oh, I wish Image Builder actually had a way of hosting the artifacts for the image, or a mechanism for doing that. Perry actually had a really clever solution of running things in cluster, because in cluster API, you get a management cluster for free. So it just runs the whole image build in cluster. I really like that solution, but it's very cluster API specific,
Which may be okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's kind of revisit this in a little bit. I do see that Jing is on the call now. Jing, do you want to talk about the issue I saw you adding earlier about the container teardown issue?
Right. I think Julia from our team also joined. we have seen like custom issues when the container during the container tear down, right? Basically, we delete the container and it failed, has this error message saying failed to remove file system. The error would be like create file, some Docker file, like a path, and access is denied error. So this kind of error is almost the same as the one, let's say, I discovered for, let's say, when you run OS-stat, if it is a symlink to a directory, it will give you error message showing create file. Create file is very misleading. We are not creating any file. So it just, but it's still saying create file with the path and access is denied. So we're wondering if anyone's seeing this type of error or what's the possible root cause of it.
Is there an issue or anything that we could add more details? I can add a little bit of maybe flavor to this. I know that in Windows, one of the most common ways to get a file handle is to just issue a create file call. And with whatever permissions that you, what you want on it. So that's probably why so many things like the OS stat call and potentially this are having errors with the actual create file call. I'm guessing that something is just trying to get a file handle to use for some other operations.
I created an issue under the Windows container. Hi,
Okay.
I'm Julie. I'm from Google.
Hi, Julie.
Hi, Mark. Let me explain a little bit. It seems that the file seems to be the Docker's container log file. It seems that the Docker tried to remove the container, and it comes out this of access denied issue, and it fails to remove the container. So the pod stuck in the termination. And I saw the similar issue was reported in AKS before, and it seems that they submitted some PR, and the PR was fixed, was available in 1.17.12, but actually the customer saw this issue repro in 1.17.15. So I'm wondering if I'm also wondering if there's some, besides the Kubernetes PR side change, if there's some also some change applied to the OS layer for the AKS one. I also attached the link of the AKS one in the bug I opened. Can I add the link?
Yeah, is the issue that you opened, is it titled pod stuck terminating on Windows nodes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yes,
I just
that is
found
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a lot of context on this right now, but let me add a link to that.
So
See.
someone on the chat mentioned a DW share mode problem. I don't know what is DW share mode.
Yeah, that was Lubomir.
Yeah, basically this is when you use the create file function, there's a way to distinguish the mode for this particular call with respect to an existing call, prior call that already obtained access to this handle. So basically, if somebody's walked the file for write access, you have to be careful how you execute your current create file call. I can link you to the docs for that, but you basically have to debug whether something has already obtained access.
Yeah, this might be an issue in the Docker code base though, as well, depending on, I think, depending on who all is, like where all the errors are originating from, but that is good. That is a good insight.
Mm-hmm.
Right, we suspect it's like, yeah, Docker layer.
Yeah. Let me see if anybody on the call would be able to take a look at that. Let me try and follow up with some people inside of Microsoft who are closer to the Docker kind of layer or the HCS layer and see if there's anything that we can kind of do to help with this investigation.
Also wanted to ask, access is denied error. Did you obtain that with the get last error function?
Sorry, are you asking, so can you repeat the question?
Yeah, basically, how did you obtain the actual message of the error? The access is denied.
It is from the node log, because we repro it in the GKE Windows, so it's like we read it from the cloud logging. So it's it is some I think it is produced by the Docker daemon, and it is ported to our logging. Yeah.
Ah, I see. So yeah, it must be traced back to why it's happening in the Docker daemon, I guess.
Yeah. And you're seeing these in the kubelet logs, Julie?
No, this is not kubelet logs. I think it is Docker log.
I think it should be also in the kubelet log, right? So kubelet will carry this error message because it failed to delete the container, and so from Docker daemon error message, it's also logged in like node Kubernetes side.
Would it be possible to attach a larger section of the kubelet log to this issue to see what other calls may be happening around the same time, or beforehand leading up to the situation? That might help figure out if maybe something. I know we've seen issues in the past where when containers start and then immediately fail, Docker, like there were some issues either, I don't remember if it was with Docker or with some CNI cleanup, where basically the operations happened too fast and something got confused and left files around that were unable to get cleaned up.
Yeah, I see if customers delete this log, you can see the error message. It mentions some log. It is the Docker log, I think Docker container log. If you manually delete that log, then the container can be removed and the pod can be terminated.
Okay, that might be worthwhile to add to the list.
Oh, okay.
To the issue. Yeah, I think we're probably, let's circle back around to this later. Let me ping some folks and see if we can get some more information in the issue.
Thank you.
Jay, did you also add this next agenda item? The server fault question?
This is just a stupid question. You know, Hayden's here. He may have some thoughts on this. So I actually couldn't mount a Windows ISO today in a VMware workstation, and I couldn't figure out why. And I was just wondering if has anybody tried to develop against Windows Server 2019 in VMware workstation and run into an issue with Packer, where specifically this was the image builder, but it was a situation where the ISO wasn't visible to workstation. This is another esoteric question that I ran into, but if nobody's ever ran into it, I'll figure it out later.
I could probably look at it with you tomorrow, Jay. I haven't seen it, and I've been using this a bit, but.
Well, it's the generic question of like, how the hell is it even possible that the Windows installer is booted? Is there something that I don't know about how Windows is embedded into the BIOS of hypervisors or something like this? Because how is it that you could even have a thing that had a Windows dialog that was trying to install the operating system if the ISO wasn't visible?
So I know that we've run into issues before. Is this just happening recently, or is this with like so one thing that may happen is check the ISO, and inside the ISO, there's going to be one gigantic file named install.wim. That is, Wim is kind of an internal Windows image format, and that includes all of kind of the bits that get laid out to disk when you do a Windows install.
Mhm.
That file may, when I was checking before, was pretty close to approaching the maximum file size that the FAT32 file system could read.
Oh,
It
I've
may
seen that
be
before.
possible that that file, due to, you know, ongoing continued servicing, has gotten so large that, so Windows kind of operates by, it boots into this Windows kind of pre-install environment, or WinPE, and that there's been issues kind of, you know, accessing files larger than the 4 GB limit that is set for the FAT file system. So there may be an issue expanding that install Wim file on there.
Mhm. I'm just writing this in the comments about thread.
Yeah,
that's-
because
and that's-
if you can boot into the WinPE environment, which it looks like is happening here, but you cannot see any images here, it may be similar to that.
And
Wow.
the WinPE may be able to boot, but it hasn't loaded the drivers needed to access your files. So sometimes you can boot Windows PE, but you need to install the VirtIO drivers in KVM, for example.
Are you
So
using
you'll actually
Image
need,
Builder, Jay? Because I do that inside of the Packer and Image Builder. I load in the PowerVirtual SCSI drivers.
you may need to side load the drivers onto the ISO so you can go load them.
Oh, okay. I didn't know you had to load them into the ISO. I've definitely loaded them. I loaded them into the Wim. I put them into the unattend and then loaded them in the unattend in the pre-boot. I think in the specialize or something. It's been about 6 months since I did this, so pretty sure.
And it depends on your virtualization. I'm more experienced with
Yeah.
KVM and others, but in the past, I've actually had to rebuild the ISO with drivers to get past Windows PE into, you know, to access drives and stuff.
I don't
I-
have, there may be some kind of extra packages that you can install too. I think VirtualBox has this, where you can install these extra packages and it'll detect if it's trying to boot up Windows, and kind of also inject those drivers,
Mhm.
any drivers that are needed into that.
Yeah, I can see the in Jay's screen there. I can see the PV SCSI drivers are loaded as part of the floppy drive. I can look at it tomorrow with you, Jay. It might be something between Fusion and Workstation is slightly different the way that it loads these drivers, or the default drive that it uses or something.
Yeah, I mean, just getting this working on Ubuntu was tricky because I actually, this is Ubuntu Focal Faucet 2020, and I actually had to install the VM monitor and another kernel module myself manually just to get the thing to boot up. So I suspect it's something happening between the hypervisor and the operating system, and because I've already had to do one weird thing. So, so to up level it, Perry, like, you know, the reason I was doing this was I kind of was trying to go through the, what if I didn't have vSphere? What if I didn't have, forget about vSphere. Like, what if I didn't have a external hypervisor to run Image Builder against, and I just wanted to build the OVA offline? What's the experience going to be like? And so that's what I ran into. So has anybody ever done this on Windows or Mac or OS 10? Has anybody ever run Image Builder on those environments?
Yeah, I've run Image Builder on Fusion.
Cool. I see Dave nodding also.
Yeah,
was
I've done this too, but it's with the it's always been on Hyper-V, which I believe like probably has a lot more of the drivers needed kind of built in.
I did wonder whether we could do it with there's a QEMU KVM like Packer, sorry, Image Builder section. I did wonder whether we could try and add it into there, which might make that easier. But then I don't know about converting from OVA. Maybe there's a way of doing that. But yeah, interesting.
I have
So
a small question.
Yeah.
When you're talking about image builder, are you talking about a container image builder or a virtual machine image builder?
we need to rename this stuff. Image Builder is a thing that makes operating system images, but like we have so many image tools. We've got image package, we've got image builder, and they all do totally different stuff at totally different levels of the stack. So
The which
I
image
almost-
builder?
yeah, really.
The
I feel
Kubernetes SIG image builder. So
Okay,
it's,
okay.
it's a sub-project of Kubernetes. I think there's an Azure image builder, right? I think there's
Yes.
like, yeah.
should we
Yeah.
go through it in pairing today? Maybe that's what we should do today.
Because
haven't
we
gone
also
through it
have we also have an image builder that we used for OpenStack, and it was useful to build images for OpenStack of any format.
I think that was forked from the Kubernetes SIG image builder a long time ago. I could be wrong, but I think someone told me that once, that was forked at some point.
The Azure image builder is kind of a Packer as a service. So
I feel like this is what we should, what do y'all think? Should we just do this for our thing today when we start pairing in 1 minute?
sure.
What's up, David Justice? You like my jokes?
I love them.
All
That's
right. I
right.
think I'm
Yeah.
gonna kind of close the meeting out at that and hand it over to Jay, and we can start on the pairing sessions. I'm going to stay since the SIG Windows or SIG node meeting is closed too. But let me
Okay.
stop that and hand it over. Thanks everybody for attending. Feel free to stay and pair on us with image builder on Windows.
Yeah, and we'll do the kubelet too today. I think kubelet, image builder. Does anybody have anything they want to go over before we start? And I start the recording?
Hey Jay, I just had some questions about the kube-proxy next generation.
Cool. Cool.
I was just
Yeah.
kind of curious, like, what kind of timeline you see that happening in.
So as it depends. So it depends if you're going to be helping us out because I'll make my timeline a little different. So
Right.
like, you know, like the biggest thing now is getting people to dig in. I mean, if we got one other person to really dig in and help own a piece of it, Ricardo's owning IPVS. And I hope to get involved with the Windows side if I can get some product, get some, you know, day job stuff done. And if we can just get maybe one other person to really dig into something else, either the Windows side or the IP table side, I mean, I think we could have it like sort of a rock solid, because it's been used so much, it's been played with enough, and it's been kind of hardened by the folks that are using it. I feel like in a month or two, we could have something that like you could run and you could have pretty good results with. You know, it's just ownership. You know what I mean? It's not really like there's a ton of work to do. The scaffolding is there. As far as how long it takes to be dot all the T's and cross all the T's and dot all the I's and all that stuff. I mean, that's up to the CNCF gods of, you know, KEPs and all that stuff. But I mean, it's out of tree. So it's like, you know, we get it going and get it working, and people are going to be able to start to use it, and you're going to be confident using it in releases, I think, if we just get one other person to really dig into it. So
Cool.
I know that's kind of a roundabout question, but I think probably 2 months. If we didn't, it would probably be 1 to 2 months, depending on how many people we really get digging into it. Now, that said, there's a lot of people that came to that first meeting. I'm assuming some small percentage of those people are going to do work. So like as long as there's a few people that are really going to dig in, I think we'll be fine. I think to have something within a month or two that people can start using.
Cool. Yeah, just trying to get an idea of like how far ahead it was. No, it seems good. I'll look more into the project.
Yeah, so Lori Apple, and she helped me to make a doc that wasn't so dysfunctional about this, and that actually kind of, so let me put a link to that in here. Here's the link, and I'll also put the link because, you know, I like to multicast things, right? So everybody knows what's going on. So I'm going to put it in Zoom too. Windows Just a reminder if folks. Okay, cool. So I put a link in both, but yeah, Sebastian, if you feel like, you know, you want to get involved and maybe help own a tiny piece of it, or help have a friend that wants to, or whatever, or if nothing else, just come and hang out with us on Fridays. I mean, having other people showing up helps us to keep the momentum going, right? It gives us a little community fanfare, and that goes a long way. So even if you could just show up every once in a while, that counts as supportive. So you know what I mean.
Cool.
It's Friday mornings at like, I don't know, 8 or something,
Yeah.
Eastern.
Do you want to give just like a 1-sentence summary of what you're trying to accomplish here for everybody else on the call?
Yeah, so the kube proxy has been a thorn in our side on the Windows side for a long time, and everywhere else, because it's very hard to change it. Because if you change something, for example, endpoint slices, you add those to IPVS, then you have to add them to IP tables, but then what you didn't add it to Windows, now you have to add it to Windows too. So we have a problem in Windows where we are not really tracking the changes that are happening in the kube proxy entry, and it's diverging, right? We also have a general understandability problem because there's almost no real clear decoupling between the generic logic of the kube proxy and the way that the individual kube proxy providers are implemented. So the kube proxy's job is to write routing rules between services and pods, and it's a lot more for something that does something so simple. There's just not a deep level of sort of modularity and object orientation in the code base as is, right? So a lot of code drift going on. It's making it hard for us to really know what the difference between Windows and Linux is from a kube proxy support perspective. The tests aren't the best. I mean, you can pass kube conform. Sorry, I was supposed to be 1 sentence. Cleaning up the kube proxy so that Windows is easier to maintain. That's kind of the whole thing.
And then,
yeah,
just one more question, just so I'm kind of on the same page. And it's fine if this is still kind of being discussed or planned. Is the plan to move kube proxy, at least for Windows, out of tree then? I heard somebody say out of tree, or have a second kube proxy that is out of tree, or move the entirety of kube proxy out of tree?
Well, so my plan
TBD.
is to basically continually ask you and Tim Hawkins if it's okay until one of you actually has an opinion. And I feel like right now, I feel like everyone's scared, but it's the right thing to do. So I
think
feel
Tim's opinion is probably going to have a lot more weight than anybody on Windows at this point.
That sounds like a great idea, moving out of k/k.
Yeah.
The repo's too big.
Yeah. Historically, though, like at least from what I've seen, any effort to move things out of tree end up with just maintaining both the in tree and the out of tree kind of iterations, kind of indefinitely. Because
yeah, and that's fine. You know, we'll have a crappy kube proxy in tree, and then we'll all do all of our work, and everybody who's shipping Windows or supporting it is going to have a really good alternative, and they're going to know how it works. And I think that's great for the vendors that are going to get involved in it, right? So I'm fine with the crappy dead code in tree as long as it doesn't prevent our ability to build a community around something better, you know? I know that's not really the right way to say it, but you know, it's like the cloud provider stuff, right? It's like, okay, it's in there, and yeah, that's a problem, but you know. So cool. So I guess, should I start recording and we'll dig into the whatever we're going to do today?
Yeah, did I not stop recording? Let me stop anyway.